Well, welcome to Q&A November 2018. This beautiful morning with Zeus. All right, set up here in a, this park has some really great sort of picnic or gathering facilities. It's some benches everywhere and picnic tables and stuff, so it's a really cool place. So we're just sort of settled in. I was gonna do something near the water, but there are so many salmon that are dead right now because it's the end of the spawning season here, and Zeus tends to, he tends to try to roll in the dead fish, and that's pretty gross, so nobody wants any of that. Anyhow, Q&A. I get so many questions. I thought I would cover a few of the common ones that I get, because some of the questions really aren't have anything to do with technicalities or how you know, how to do something exactly, or whether something is to be used, some kind of tool, some kind of aid, or something like that. I get a lot of questions that sort of are around the morals and ethics of those techniques or thoughts or aids or training methods or horse husbandry methods. And those questions are the ones where a lot of people, I find, are looking for sort of a like-minded thought process. And the idea is that, I feel, is that they're trying to move away of sort of that classical approach to horses, the idea that you need to break them, the idea that you need to punish them, the ideas a lot of people have a hard time with on using particular types of bits, leverage bits or extra straps and martingales and all those kinds of things that they feel it just doesn't seem quite right. And they come and ask, you know, that doesn't seem quite right. What's with that? So a lot of the questions that I get asked are around that. And so this Q&A, it may not be, you know, precise questions, but I do want to be able to provide information to everybody that is asking, hey, is it cool that I do this? Is it cool that I set things up this way? And most of the answers, unfortunately, are no. I don't feel it's cool, and here's why. So first question that I get quite a bit is, you know, is it okay to feed horses 2 to 3 flakes a day, or you know, a couple of times a day, once in the morning, once at night? You know, a few flakes, something along those lines, which is a very common feeding approach. It's a very old approach to feeding, and I was saying this just the other day, I was saying there are many other barns, whole barns, not just people, not just some one horse owner here or there, but whole barns that are switching straight out from the classical approach, or the old approach of stalling a horse up for the night, throwing in a couple of flakes and forgetting about them, letting them go for probably, which especially in the wintertime here is going to be a good 12 to 16 hours. Summertime it's usually less because we have more daylight. Horses get to get out in the morning. And this is just a general, I'm not trying to blanket everybody into this, but I see it, so that's the way it goes. But you know, even if it's just 12 hours, let's go with a minimum of 12 hours. They go in at, say, 6 o'clock at night when it's definitely dark, and they come out again, you know, morning seems to be a little, you know, kind of early, maybe 6 o'clock. in the morning. It's still dark. And within that time, they're given 2 or 3 flakes of hay on the ground. And people ask me, is that cool? And the answer is no. And that's not just an opinion. As I said, many more places that I go to, I visit, and I see have changed. Maybe they've changed a while ago, maybe they're recently changing, but they are changing to a more sustainable method of feeding horses, which is a way that I've talked about many times that I don't particularly like, but it's a necessary evil of hay bags. Providing as much hay as they can possibly eat in a large hay bag that, as you've seen many times on horsey checkup videos here, they don't eat it all. In the morning, it's still, some of it's still there. They just sort of pick away at it and go at it. And it may not be that way in the beginning, but it will be later. But back to the original question, is it cool to do that, you know, for the whole day? Is it cool to do that for the whole night? The answer is no. And the reason it's no is because horses' stomachs produce acid all the time. All the time. It's not like our stomachs. They don't just produce it when we need it. We eat something and our stomach says, or our body says, well, better digest that, and create some acid. Horses are continuously creating acid. Their stomach is also made up of sort of 2 halves, you know, if you'd call it. And the bottom half is nicely coated for protection against that acid, but the top half isn't so much. And when they go to run around or jump around, which is why sometimes when you see horses really resisting going for jumping or running or cantering or going for a ride, they might just actually be hungry, because their stomach is mostly empty, and they don't have anything to stop that acid from sort of sloshing around if it isn't already accumulated enough that it's above that line. So science says, no, it isn't cool. My opinion also says, no, totally not cool. Horses are grazing animals. They need to be eating all the time. And the argument that, oh, it's too expensive, my horses will just eat it all up, and it'll be, some horses do, but I have very rarely seen that myself. Doesn't say it doesn't happen, but you'll actually find that it's more economical to feed constantly compared to intermittently, because you'll get a happier horse, a healthier horse, you know, lack of colicking usually. I'm not saying any of these are guarantees, but my experience and the experience of others around me that follow this find you will have a healthier horse, which means less vet bills or even death. No death. Due to the fact that they're eating constantly, they'll have a healthier coat, especially if the hay is any good. Their body will maintain better in the wintertime. They'll be able to stay warm, because the other side of that is that they can't stay warm without eating. That's what makes the engine run. Food, just like us. We consume calories, creates energy. The byproduct is heat. So there you go. Pure science right there. Is it cool? No, not cool at all. So, okay, let's move to the next location for the next question. That was a big one. Okay, new location. This area here, the other thing about this park that's so cool is that there are piles of horse corrals. So you can literally bring your horse here and hang out, have a picnic. I think you can do some camping. Okay, the next question that I usually get is from people who are taking lessons from trainers or teachers, and they'll be riding along and the horse will be a lot of trouble. And the question that usually comes in is, how do I deal with that? I feel like I want to say something. I feel like I want to do something different than what I'm being told. A lot of times the teacher or trainer will tell me to hit the horse with a crop or to correct it in sort of a very aggressive manner. And I won't get into all the ways that people tell me that they're told to do things with horses. And they said, is it okay to just say, can I stop here? Can I do something? Can I get off? Can I try something else? And this is a hard one because you're not in the situation, but most of the time I'll say yes. It doesn't mean I'm trying to get in the middle of somebody else who's trying to teach that student who may be in a situation where it's important that they sort of more assert themselves into it. But the situations that I get told about are a little bit more aggressive. I don't feel, you know, that if you're riding a horse and something's going really wrong and the horse is reacting enough that it's either bucking or rearing. So we're not talking about just having a little bit of trouble. We're talking about that it's bucking, rearing, and you generally feel unsafe. In those situations, maybe the trainer, maybe the teacher is saying, look, don't give up, because when they ride, they don't give up and the horse comes around. But you, as a more beginner rider or maybe a less resilient or skilled rider in that area, might say, this doesn't feel good to me. I don't feel good about this. I'd like to get off and try something different, go to a different place, stop for the day or whatever. And my answer to that is absolutely. If your safety is ever feeling, you feel like it's compromised, hop off. There's tons of work that you can do on the ground that can check out whether or not this horse is with you. Because most of the time, if it's rearing or bucking, you've got a horse that is just not interested in doing what you're asking it to do, which is very hard on the horse, very hard on you because it's scary. And you're going to feel like you're probably going to get hurt. And in such a case, it's very difficult to learn. So there's so many factors with this question that just say, yeah, if on your mind is, I want to get off, I can probably guarantee you the horse is going to be figuring that part out and saying, well, hurry up and get off then. And might try encouraging you further. It doesn't mean that if you were to take a more aggressive approach saying, hey, get in line, that the horse wouldn't. But the question always is, do I have to? Is that what I need to do to get this horse to comply? And in some cases it may, because it's a learned behavior at that point. The horse is waiting for the point where it's going to get in enough trouble that it just kind of goes along. But that also gets into that slippery slope of, is there something wrong with the horse? Is there something wrong with the saddle? Is it sore? Has it been riding too much? How do its feet feel? Did it eat anything beforehand? Does its stomach hurt? So there's lots of other factors, but the moral side of it is absolutely. And if you have a teacher or a trainer that says, no, you stay on that horse and you do this, then I would just, as one person put it, as somebody that I follow, Buck Brenneman, who I watched a long time ago, I'll never forget this quote. He says, you know, sometimes if you're just not getting enough quality in the person that you're working with, the teacher that you're working with, or the trainer that you work with, you know, maybe it's time to let that person go and find some better quality, something that fits you better. Because if it doesn't fit you better, then you're the one who's paying the money. You're the one who's spending the time on yourself, the investment into you. So don't be afraid to say, this isn't good. This is not what I want. Please teach me something different other than taking a crop or a whip or a heavy set of spurs or a long shank bit. All these things that people approach me with say, is this what I should be doing? Is this how to correct? Is this how to fix this problem of this horse having trouble figuring out what it wants to do and looks like it wants to just kick me off? So to provide a little bit of encouragement to those that do ask that question, because I get it an awful lot, absolutely, your direction and your desire and your work should be around you as much as possible. And a teacher or a trainer should be able to sort of find a different way to do things other than that one way that you're not happy with. So as it goes, if you're not getting the quality that you want, find something with better quality. Right, buddy? Let's move on to the next place for the next question. okay. In the forest, it's quiet. Another thing about this park is you can come here and just chill out, find some peace. The last question I get, or that I have, not that I get, but it's a difficult one I thought I'd tackle because there is both moral, ethical parts of this, along with, you know, just pure choice. But a lot of people ask, should I blanket my horse? Should I blanket the horse that I'm leasing? How do you feel about blankets? Do you blanket your horse in the wintertime? And it's such a big question because the community, the horse community, or the horse world is very divided about this, but I get this a lot, especially when it starts to get towards winter. So I suspect I'll be answering the same question next year around this time when people start wondering, what should I do? I get a lot of people saying that, you know, the people around them, their friends, or the place that they board their horse at, they're being told to blanket. And so the question is asked usually with the idea that the person asking does not want to blanket their horse, and they're wondering, what should they do? So when I'm asked this, I answer the question as sort of unbiased as possible, meaning that we need to start talking about, well, what is the effect of blanketing? What does the horse need? And what does the horse have already that would require to not have blankets? So the first part of this is that horses are big animals. They're huge. They don't shed heat very well, so they overheat easily. Unlike, say, for example, a bird, a smaller massed animal, is very susceptible to the heat and cold. Actually cools off quite quickly as well. But to stay warm is actually difficult. So a lot of birds, that's why we try our best to be able to provide food and bird houses and stuff for birds so that they'll stay alive through the winter, because they're so susceptible. But horses are not, they're very big. So their change in temperature takes much longer, like the mass of, say, water. You know, a small puddle compared to a pond, compared to a lake, compared to the ocean. The temperature fluctuations are going to take longer to happen. Naturally so, because it's just a larger mass or smaller mass. So that's the first thing to think about. The second thing to think about is the environment that the horse lives in. Does it have access to shelter? Does it have access to food? Shelter will keep the horse dry and maybe out of the wind, and food will keep it warm, because as we talked about earlier, if a horse has food in its body and is constantly sort of, you know, absorbing, digesting, and moving that through, it's going to create a lot of heat, as much heat pretty much as it needs. It would have to be very drastic temperatures to have a horse freeze to death. Now, if you're wondering if they should just, you know, just be kept from being kind of cold, you know, like we get cold, there's more science behind that about how the horse has their fur, if they're not clipped, okay? If they're not clipped and they're naturally growing their fur out, they're going to get what's called piloerection, which is where the hair stands up off of the skin and sort of fluffs over a little bit, and it traps a layer of air in between their skin and the fur, so that there is an insulating layer of air. So it's not necessarily the fur, the hair, that's sort of the mane and everything that keeps the horse warm. It's actually, there's a little layer of air that the outside air has to cool before it gets to the skin. So they have that layer of insulation there. That also keeps them warm. So if you see a horse in the wintertime and its fur is not standing up, likely it's not cold. If it is standing up, it could be kind of cold and trying to keep itself warmer. The third bit in there, fourth, to ask or to look at your horse and observe, is it shivering? Does it look like it's cold? Is it sort of staying very, very still and sort of huddled and unhappy looking? In such a case, probably cold. If not, probably just fine. So, you know, when you're thinking about if you need to blanket, most of the science says no, you don't really need to. Horses can keep themselves quite warm. all on their own, as long as they have certain things in their life. One is shelter, stay out of the wet, stay dry if they can. But that said though, a lot of horses, including our own, stand out in the rain and get all freezing cold, or looks like freezing cold, but they're probably not, or they would go stand in their shelter. Second thing is, do they have enough food? Our horses have 24/7 hay, so they never run out of hay. They've always got food going through their body, which is maybe why they're standing out in the rain. So those two things are really important. Third to consider is whether or not the horse is old and or sick. They will be more susceptible to getting cold. You may have to modify its environment, and if you can't, you may need to blanket in such a case. And the fourth thing, I don't even know what number I'm on anymore. But you have to think about the environment being, whether it's cold, dry, has food, doesn't have food, whether that horse has been modified in some way, meaning that has the hair or fur been taken off through clipping, or say, for example, there's a health problem with its skin, and you know, it's got some rain scald or something like that, where there can't grow hair, it just keeps scabbing off and stuff like that, so it won't have that protection. The other little thing to consider that I brought up one time is whether or not a horse is washed really often with shampoos and soaps. It'll actually remove a lot of its oils out of its skin and fur, so it won't be able to shed off water as easily. In such a case, you may need to protect the body a little bit until that can kind of come back and grow back and be oily and slick enough for water to not stick to it anymore. So there's no definitive answer for every situation, but if you take those sort of circumstances and those requirements of the horse and sort of put them together yourself, you know, you'll be able to figure out, does your horse need a blanket? Does it really need to be put underneath something? You'll be able to figure that out. The one last thing about blankets is that the natural effect of piloerection is the hair or the fur stands up and it creates that pillow of space in between, that warm air. When you put a blanket on, you completely negate that, because it just tamps down all of the fur to where it's just right up against the body of the horse, which completely stops all of the horse's natural ability to protect itself from the cold. And it can actually take many hours. I've seen some take up to a day or so for them to fluff back up, and it takes a little while because they got to stand back up. Not all, but you know, so something to think about. And then the very last thing, when you're going to blanket, make sure you get out when it's warmer or sunny or something like that, and take it off so that they can stay cool if they need to, because horses have no ability outside of, you know, their natural ability, if they don't have a blanket, to have that piloerection reverse. Their fur goes flat and they're able to cool. No horse can take off their own blanket, even though some of them try. So lots of things to consider: the environment, the human factor, the horse's health, and the horse's exactly, you know, the horse environment, the food and shelter. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that's been interesting and useful and handy for you guys out there that are wondering what should you do, and what if you want to do one thing or another, how can you talk to others about it, and not just be giving an opinion. These are actual facts. So if that helps, great, let me know. If you have any more questions, let me know that too. We're done here. Zeus is, I've been talking for long enough, he's actually laying down. Check us out. Look at him. All right, Zeus, you ready to go? Yeah? Okay, buddy. Let's get on with our walk. That was a good little talk.